Hey guys, it's your boy Roy, and today I'm gonna make a short video. Well, it's not gonna be short, knowing me, I always say that, about Vanquish. And apparently there's been a YouTuber, he made a sort of video review on Vanquish, what his thoughts were. And normally speaking, I don't really do video replies, but I thought, hey, what the hell, it would be fun to do it at least one time. I want to preface this for people that don't normally watch my content, because I don't really do a lot of content. I'm more of a writer. I write for Stinger Magazine, which is a website that's dedicated to action games. We also have a forum, really fun place. It's mostly a place where people that like action games can just hang around, chat, exchange information on advanced tactics and stuff like that. Nice community, pretty fun. So that's what I do. And I'm also a big time Vanquish player. I really like Vanquish. I did a lot of challenge runs in it. I'm not the best in the world or anything. There's still a couple of players that I think like they are insane, especially Vinichiro and Molu Japan, even though they're both kind of retired. I don't think they play anymore. And Zarok is also a great player. But I digress. That's more where I'm coming from. I'm also not a native speaker of the English language, so if you sometimes hear me fumble on a few words, or I say something that's like, wait, does he really mean that? Like, that word isn't really fully correct. Please accept it and move on. I'm not perfect. Anyway, UnderTheMayo, he made a video about Vanquish, and the general consensus of his video, like if you analyze it as a whole, I mean, the video is quite new, so I only watch it like once, and then I skim through it, like what are the key points, like what's he trying to say, and what's his general analysis of it, because he played it about, I think as he notes, about 1.5 times. And what I see a lot with reviewers like him, and also mostly that he does, but also from other content creators, and even players on forums, even on my forum sometimes, is that people will put like thousands of hours in one game. They really give it their all in that game. They learn the tech, they absorb the tech, they challenge themselves, not because the game demands it from them, but because they want to, because they enjoy the game. It gives them something, be it instant enjoyment or community. I remember I had that myself when I played a very boring MMO. Like, the community itself can be a motivation. And then they find a game that somebody tells them to play, and they play it for 5 hours, and then they give the exact same level of judgment to that. And you can't do that. Like, you cannot play, for example, I had this discussion before with someone, Devil May Cry 4 for like 5,000 hours, and then play Ninja Gaiden 2 for 6, and then expect an equal level of return. That's not going to happen. And that's kind of what you see here in his video on Vanquish, is he expects, or at least seems to expect, a sort of immediate trigger and a level of return of investment on why should I play this game? Why should I enjoy it? Why should I put time into it? And for me personally speaking, and I think when I'm saying these words, I'll speak for a lot of Vanquish players. The appeal of Vanquish, and this is sort of also content with games like Ninja Gaiden 2 and Zone of the Enders 2, which all three games are kind of in the same subgenre of that, is that they are extremely difficult on the highest difficulty setting, to the point that no matter how good you get, it's always going to be challenging. If I compare that to, let's say, God of War, the classic series, or Ninja Gaiden Black, great games, but once you get good at them, there's a certain level of skill. Once you reach that, the game doesn't fight back anymore, because you got too good at it. You know the strategies, you know the patterns, you know the flow of the combat. And games like Ninja Gaiden 2 and Vanquish and Zone of the Enders 2, they have so many enemies at the same time, with so many diverging move sets, diverging mechanics. They intermix that all together, like you have all different enemy types together. And there's so much pressure on you, and you take so much damage. It's always that adrenaline rush, like, oh, I got that fight. Even though you did that fight 20 times, doing it no damage or no death even is extremely satisfying. There's a reason, for example, why almost nobody has done a single death run in any of those three games. There's one in Ninja Gaiden 2 from Faram, great player. There's one in Zone of the Enders 2 from, what's his username? Kaiser? No? Oh, shit. Oh, that's bad. I'm sorry. I know you're watching. You have the Castlevania image on my forum. I forgot your name for a second. I'm sorry. I think it's Kaiser. And in Vanquish, there's nobody. Nobody has done a single death run on Godhard. I know I got pretty close. I got, on my record, it's 5 deaths in a single run. People that will watch my channel after this, you won't find it. I used to record a lot when I was younger. So I've done a Godhard run with only the shotgun, and I've done a no cover run. But all the other runs I just did off camera because I don't like recording. It's not my thing. So props to the people that do. For me, it gives too much stress while playing. I just like to relax and die 500 times or do crazy mistakes without the feeling that somebody's watching me. That's a personal thing. Anyway, I also wrote down some notes, so sometimes I might look to the left where my laptop is. But that's a general feeling that I get, is that you put all this energy in one game, you expect the other game to give exactly the same amount, even though there has to be a point where you decide, like, I like this game, I'm going to put time into it. And the general consensus that I hear from Mayo's video is that he doesn't feel Vanquish pushes him to use the mechanics. And I've heard this said by him about other games, but I generally like to think that isn't fun a big enough motivator? When I play Ninja Gaiden, I don't play for a higher rank because the ranking system in that game is garbage. I don't play for more karma. I play because I like the combat. I play it because it's fun. Vanquish, I play it because it gives me this adrenaline rush and because it's fun. Like, you can do so much crazy shit in that game that opens up levels of complexity. He notes a few things that are very baseline, like that you can reload cancel by pressing switching weapons on the fly. That's basic. Do you know that you can throw a grenade in midair, use the LFE gun, which is sort of like a projectile that pushes things forward, to push the grenade halfway across the map, switch to your sniper and snipe the grenade in the enemy's face, because doing so will, I think it's like 5 times more damage. The grenade does like 5 times more damage or something when it's hit by your bullet. To just send an explosion going so you can spawn kill like half an army. That is fucking cool. And it's hard as shit to do on a controller. There's also little tech stuff like EMP sliding and all these other abilities that just keeps like that flow going, because the entire process of Vanquish is not necessarily, he notes it like it's a cover shooter that punishes you for playing cool. And first off, like, I might be fumbling a bit through this. This is not a super coherent, well-written video, you know. It's just a video reaction. I don't really do these often, so whatever. And he notes is that this game doesn't reward me for playing in a fun way. And I gotta admit, that was a bit of a weird thing for me, because Vanquish is generally known to be badly skilled on difficulty. We generally say that the game has like 5 difficulty settings. You have ultra easy, super easy, easy, pretty easy, easy, and fucking difficult. And in game terms, you got like automatic easy, casual easy, very easy, normal, hard, and then you got God hard. And on all those other difficulties except God hard, what the game basically has is enemies deal pitiful amounts of damage. Enemies also focus on your allies, because in this game you have allied helpers that walk around that you can heal if they get downed, and healing them gives you ammo or grenades. And on Godhard, that is all out the window. Like, you are target number 1. On normal, you take less damage. You have twice the energy meter compared to Godhard. So the whole difficulty is built like this is like the tutorial wheel. You can, if you're just, I play it for the story, play on normal, you might die once or twice, and you can just do cool shit without it. And you still feel rewarded. Like, it's like, wow, I like jumped in the air and did a backflip and I hung in the air like upside down shooting a guy, and looks cool. And then the casual players, like, after, I think the game's like on your first run like 6 hours. I'm usually on my runs is like 3 or 4, so let's say 6 hours. Then you're done. You had a cool experience. You give it back to Best Buy or whatever people in America use. I don't know. You sell it. You move on with your life. But as we all know, games of this nature, especially those made by Shinji Mikami, who's the director of this game, he really likes to make his games in such a way that the first run is enjoyable for everyone, but for the people that are insane, it's like the first like spark that you're like, whoa, what's awaiting me? And to give a little insight, like I've played this game through, I did a quick math check. I've probably finished it at least 50 times now across multiple devices. And it's a 4-hour game. It has no ranking system to speak of. You got like a scoring system, but I don't give a fuck about that. Scoring systems tend to be very easily abused in 3D games, so I don't care. Like, if you want to grind on that stage that has nearly infinitely respawning enemies, be my guest, not my thing. But then he says like there's no reason to get good or to use these mechanics. Again, fun. I mean, how much should I spell it out for you? Same with that. Even though there is like I always say this, like especially with modern action games, you see a lot of players, they want a style system or a ranking system, and this is probably a personal thing, but I really prefer it when a game just tells me how I did and let me be the judge. A game that does this, for example, is Resident Evil 4. You beat a chapter and it just says, this is how many times you died, this is how many enemies you killed, and this is your accuracy level. And I'll look at that and I'll be like, I can do better, or I'm content with that. And Vanquish does the same thing. You finish an act and it just says, this is how you did. No judgment from this game. We don't care how you do. Are you happy with this? Cool, move on. And one of those things, for example, is cover percentage. And it doesn't even score you based on it. It's literally just a number on the screen. Like, this is how many % of the time you were in cover in this act. Do you care about this? It's up to you. Personally, for me, it's a constant push forward. Like, hey, I did this chapter with 0 deaths and my cover percentage is down. So I really played aggressively, or I did it faster. And paired with just the general funness of the game, that you're this insanely powerful suit of armor that's incredibly fast. You're like a glass cannon in a world of statues made of glass. I don't know. That for me is the appeal. And I think like players that constantly want to be incentivized to play well or to be incentivized to use gameplay mechanics is why? Just have fun. And push yourself forward because you want to improve, not because the game wants you to. And like I said, I did write down a few notes about points that he mentions and points that I feel should be addressed in a more specific manner because, for example, he mentions at the first start of the review that he played the Steam version. So it's like, it's the best version around, blah, 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 blah. And usually for me, this is already a sign that this is just a video you quickly made to appease your viewers. I'm sorry, like, maybe he's watching this, but you also saw this, for example, with the Gaming Brit Show when he reviewed Ninja Gaiden Black, or when, I think it was, what's his name? Something with a C. He reviewed also the Ninja Gaiden series. It's usually with Ninja Gaiden for some reason. And they all just say all sorts of shit, and then you're like, but, for example, in higher difficulties, this is literally what you are saying that's not in the game. It is! If you just played it more, you would know. Or it's in that different version. Like somebody would say, like, I really don't like these chapters where you play as girls in Ninja Gaiden Sigma. Then play Black. Do some basic fucking research. For example, with Vanquish, among the Vanquish players, there's still a lot of debate about the version differences. Especially the Steam version and the recent anniversary re-release, which fucked up so many damage values, especially on God Hard difficulty, where the one-hit kill laser from the final boss, if you stand still, it barely damages you for some fucking reason, which is weird. Now, generally speaking, if you really want to be a purist, play the original release. It's a bit weird to say, even though it's 30 FPS. But I do have to admit, I play the Xbox One version most of the time these days, because I'm not going to get hit anyway, generally speaking, and it runs more smooth, and it's on a modern device, which is easier for me to pick up and play. And my Xbox 360 sounds like it's like a jet engine when I use it. So, a couple of things that I also felt he didn't really touch up upon, fancy, is the enemy design. And this is both visually and mechanically. He touches base a bit about like the visual design that's very samey, to which I have to say it's a 4 fucking hour game, you know? It starts off pretty interesting with like the whole space cities thing, and it has a forest. I agree it could have used like a snow area or something. But what I do appreciate about the game is that it constantly gives you new ideas. It constantly gives you new types of engagements. There's a part where you have to save a set of soldiers. There's a part where you're surrounded. There's an engagement on the train where you're suddenly ambushed. There's a boss, then you have the boss twice, or you have a mini boss in different phases, like all together, you know, stuff like that. It constantly mixes up all the encounters to at least be interesting on a gameplay side instead of just like a visual side, which I think is really good. On terms of enemies, what I really like about Vanquish is the arcade nature of its enemy design. All the enemies are color-coded, so you can easily, because the environment is kind of white and gray, you can see a Gorgie from a mile away. If he's gold, you know, like that's an elite. If it's blue, that's a melee guy. You know, you can immediately spot the enemies, which is interesting because the rollers are the same color scheme as the background environments, making them sort of blend in. They're like sneaky guys that sneak up behind you, which is why they make that extra sound effect. Like Mikami in general, like I'm not a game developer, but I have noticed that games that Mikami is involved with really do this well. Maybe it's because of him, maybe it's because he knows how to hire people that do this kind of stuff well. I don't know. But I think that's really good. But especially interesting are the Romanovs. And he literally just said, there's walker enemies. And I was like, okay. And yeah, if you're playing the first time, you just see a big walker and you shoot him 20 times and he's dead. But what's interesting about the Romanovs, and I like to say something before and then I let people judge it, like when I write my articles. But in this case, I'm just going to say Romanovs are the best enemy design I have ever seen in my entire life. Any game that I've ever played, I have never seen an enemy design as well as Romanovs. And here's why. Let's just take the basic bitch version. I think it's called the Romanov J. And the Romanov J, he has a couple of weaknesses. He has a weak spot in the back. Now, what that does is when you shoot it, you deal about double damage. Okay, that's interesting. But what this does, it also enrages him. And when he's enraged, his firepower doubles in speed. Wow, the sun is getting really bright. He becomes far more aggressive. Normally, he, for example, shoots his rocket from his fist like this, like there's like a 1 second delay. But when he's enraged, it's like fucking rapid fire, and he'll use his ultimate attack, which is like sort of a sunburst from his chest. He'll use that far more often. So there's a good trade-off. Like you can deal extra damage, but you have to come in from behind, and you get sort of like not punished for it, but you need to have a different game plan ready. But you can also delimb Romanovs. You can do this by shooting a specific body part for a long period of time, or you can use the disc launcher, which is a weapon specifically designed for that purpose. And when a disc launcher or just your weapon fire removes a limb, the enemy's state changes. Like if he loses his legs, he'll crawl around, so his mobility is less. So you can, for example, say you're in a tight spot, you quickly remove his legs, you boost all the way to the other side of the level to deal with another situation, and then you come back. Like it's engagement management. It's super interesting. Or you can remove his head, which makes him very aggressive, but he'll shoot in random directions. And this has a plus and a downside, because the plus side is he shoots not at you, so you can sort of ignore him. And after, I think it's about 60 seconds, he'll automatically die because he can't, that's like the mechanic. Like they lose their head and that sort of a countdown timer starts. The downside is he shoots at random, so it's harder to react. So you might get just clipped by this random shot firing your direction and you'll die. There's a couple of notes about the story. I agree the story's not that interesting. I will give it credit for being one of the first game stories that I remember where the plot twist is America's the villain. I think that's really interesting that even the sort of Hillary Clinton lookalike, spoilers, she commits suicide at the end because she's revealed to be like a traitor, that she orchestrated the war, she nuked her own city for like propaganda purposes and shit. I thought that was pretty ballsy. kind of reminded me a bit about the way Metal Gear Rising handled Armstrong in its depiction of the United States. I'll give it credit. It's not a story that I'll write books about or super interested in, but it has some interesting characters. I think Burns is really cool. Sam is pretty funny, but mostly that twist. I still remember it. About the weapons, he sort of shortly mentions like, yeah, the LFE like pushes enemies away. That is such an oversimplification. I think the LFE is I am happy that he mentions it. I remember at my forum when it was revealed he would do a video on Vanquish, there was like a bingo card going around, like what's he gonna say? Like, one of the things was the LFE is useless. Well, he didn't say that, so great job. But the LFE, like its strong potential is its stagger. For example, what you can do against the most extremely aggressive enemy in the game, which I'm surprised he didn't mention, is the Bia. The Bia is the hardest enemy in the game, bar none. Even harder than some bosses, in my opinion. But you can lock him down, because, for example, what you can do is you can use the LFE, which shoots that spherical form. You can shoot it at the enemy, which staggers him. Shoot a rocket afterwards, because you weapon swap. Then you shoot the LFE again, rocket again, throw an EMP to stagger him, rocket again, LFE, and you can sort of mix that into like an infinite boost, an infinite combo. You can also do a melee attack in the middle, more about that later, because during that recovery period where you do all those staggers, your meter can recharge. So there's a lot of stuff that you can play with those weapons. I was not surprised to hear him say like he sort of gravitated towards the heavy machine gun, because that's literally just I grab a gun and I aim at things and eventually they'll die. But I think Vanquish really is a game that pushes you to get better with all the weapons, because they all have specific purposes and you can experiment with them. Now he notes that the upgrade system of Vanquish doesn't promote weapon variety, to which I have to say, play on the hardest difficulty setting. I mean, am I crazy here? Because like it's fine to do like a basic review, but if you're gonna be this like professional action reviewer guy that reviews games on a higher level, which I think is what he's trying to do, at least when you watch his Doom Eternal content, you're not gonna review Doom Eternal on easy mode, where nothing of all those mechanics that game has matter, you know? Vanquish on Godhard removes the upgrade system completely. It's not there. You can't upgrade. And even then, if you do have upgrades available to you on the lower difficulty settings, it does nothing. Only the highest level of the upgrade system gives you a bonus. All the other upgrades, they increase your ammo capacity on your clip. Yay! Like, nobody cares. It's a pretty shitty upgrade system, I agree, but every time I hear this comment, the only thing I'm thinking in my head is, so you haven't played it at its peak. And I think that mostly comes into play is that there's two things I still want to talk about. Because, like I said, short video, we're already 23 minutes in. But it's a game that's clearly dear to me. For the reasons that I'm hopefully making clear. And the two things that I still want to talk about is the difficulty scaling and the urge to improve, and the meter management. And I'm going to start about the meter management first. The entire part of the game is that you have this energy bar, and everything you do from boosting to slowing down time to doing these backflips and melee attacks, it's all tied to your meter. If your meter gets completely dry, you lose all your abilities. You're basically a Gears of War character stuck in fucking like a Japanese shoot 'em up on cocaine. So you're super slow, you can't do anything. Your dodge roll has 1 frame of invincibility, if I remember correctly, in that mode. You're fucked, basically. So the punishment for not managing your meter is pretty severe. The beauty of this is the absolute tension when you nail it. As noted on Godhard, you have half the meter. This is not visualized by the meter being shorter, but by it draining faster. Instead of, I think it's like 6 seconds on normal, you can only slow down time by 2.3 seconds on Godhard, which is basically like normally that clock was like, and then it's like it's really like the first time you play Vanquish on Godhard after switching from normal or hard, it's a hard wake-up call. And this is usually where players give up, because they might have been playing on normal and hard, and they'll be styling around, like doing all this cool shit with the extended meter, and then they got a guard hard, and they're like, what is this shit? You know, I just got to stay behind cover, you know? And that's the part where you need to improve. It takes a lot of mechanical knowledge of how the enemies work, predicting how they work, and pushing your suit to its absolute limit so you can get to that level on God hard, which is very rewarding once you nail that feeling. And what I mean with that, pushing that to the limit, is constantly pushing it. Like, you're slowing down time, and like the clock almost touches the red, you know, it's almost there, like it's going, and it's almost there, and then you stop and you let it recharge, and then you go slow-mo again, or you boost just that little bit extra to get that extra distance in, to get closer to the enemy. Or you only melee when your meter is completely almost dry, because a melee will always drain your entire bar. So you don't use it on a full bar. You use it just when it's almost empty, like you squeeze the last drop out of your suit. And that's fucking fun. It's engaging. It's strategy at a high level at an extremely fast pace. You're constantly making life or death decisions at like lightning speed. And you can die. Like, I have had many times where I made the wrong decision all the time. Like, oh, fuck, that was such a cool moment. I fucked up, you know? But that's fun. That's fun too. Like, you pushed it too far and you lost. Okay, moving on. Let's try it again. And that is super cool about that game, that you can just, and I think that's meter management at its best. I'm not personally a big fan of cooldowns, because I feel you don't manage a cooldown. Generally speaking, a cooldown, you either save it for a shitty situation, or you use it immediately when it's available, so that it's available again as fast as possible. Something that, in my opinion, was a big mistake in the new God of War game. And in Vanquish, you're like constantly pushing yourself forward, and you're constantly managing your meter to the best of your ability. And this is a skill you need to learn. This is not something you can just say to yourself, oh, I'm going to push it to the limit. No, you're constantly training yourself to realize when you also need meter as a backup, for example. There's a couple of fights in the game on God hard that'll always keep like 25% of meter like in my pocket in case something goes fucking wrong. So I can boost out of there, or I can use a quick slowdown time to dodge a bullet or shoot a grenade out of the sky. And I think stuff like that is really important, because, let me see, did he say anything else about the meter management? Yeah, he mostly said that you're punished for using the game's mechanics, which isn't really true. It just punishes you for being bad at it. If you're not good at meter management yet, it's gonna suck. You're gonna be stranded in a group of 20 enemies, surrounded by enemies that are shooting at you. You don't have any meter, you're dead. Even on normal, probably. Though on normal, you can probably still dodge away and get into cover. But one trend I'm hopefully already illustrating is that desire to improve, which is not coming from the game, but from the player who likes the game. And I will give the game, like, if I'm going to give the game feedback or stuff that I think is bad about it, it's the difficulty curve. Because the difficulty curve across difficulty modes is really like this. Like, you go like this and then bam, like God hard happens. Or challenge number 6, because that's one of the challenge maps, which is really fucking challenging for newcomers. And that can be, like, what did I want to say again? That can be really distressful and demotivating, that you have to make that learning curve. But the beauty of it is with that sort of need to improve, you can always grow and get better. And the game systems, which are very simplistic, basically ammo management, cigarette management, which wasn't even mentioned in the video now that I think about it, and meter management, are just very simple concepts that you can optimize constantly and push yourself as a player further. It's one thing I always liked about Vanquish is it's not about aiming well, it's about shooting well, you know? It's not about that you have the best aim for the best headshots and everything. It's about using the right tool for the right job and using your meter smartly so you can do really well. And in that sense, this is a great game. It's a game you can play forever because it will always challenge you because it's really difficult. And if you feel punished for experimenting, then either play on the lower difficulty until you're comfortable with the next one. It's not that hard. Or just press restart and try again and push yourself further and look where you made mistakes. I often see this as well with, again, Ninja Gaiden 2, which is a game that also gets this comment a lot. People will play on normal or mentor, or should I say warrior or mentor difficulty, and say like the game is really, it's intense, but I can handle it. And then they'll reach Master Ninja, and even in Chapter 1 they'll be like, this game's fucking crazy, it's stupid, it's bullshit, and they give up. But that's the point where you gotta sort of look to yourself as a player and think like, maybe I can do this. And personally speaking, my first Master Ninja run in that game was abysmal. Like, I used every fucking dirty trick in the book. I felt horrible beating it. When I beat it, I was like, fuck this. Like, oh my god, I felt dirty. And then I played it again. And with the knowledge, like, it's kind of hard to put into words, but eventually when you play a game enough, you'll start to get more comfortable with it. Like, you'll sort of subconsciously expect, like, okay, the enemy just did a roll, so now he's going to jump and grab me. You know, you get that instinct. The more I got that, the more I could flow right through it. And eventually, like, you don't even notice the bullshit anymore. So, and I think that might be where people use the word biased. And in that case, I'm definitely biased towards Vanquish, because a lot of things that I see Mayo struggle with in the video, I don't struggle with anymore because I've played it so much. Like, a lot of things are instinct for me. But what I do want to tell people that watch this video of him and are not interested in playing Vanquish anymore because of it, give it a go. It's a short game. It's like 4 to 5 hours long, shorter on replays if you skip cutscenes and optimize certain encounters. It's a great game you can just replay in a day. Like, you'll just be like, oh, I got 3 hours left. Let me just play that game. And you can finish it. And every time there will be encounters that are slightly different, or you can play with different weapon setups. I've done a couple of single weapon runs, one with the shotgun and one I did halfway with the laser cannon, which is really interesting because the laser cannon drains your meter instead of bullets. So that's another layer of strategy right there, paired on the normal meter management. Super interesting. Really changed my outlook on the game even further in a positive light. Like, there's always something to improve, but you gotta be willing to do that. And that's what I mostly saw with this video, was just general, like, I'm playing this because people wanted me to play it, and I'm just gonna give it like 4 or 5 hours to finish. Okay, I finished it. Not interested. That's fair. Like, if you're not interested, don't play it. But then don't make a video about it. That's usually what I think. If you're gonna have a basic take on it, then why have a take at all, you know? I personally, like, when I was young, I used to criticize games a lot that I didn't play. I grew up with a GameCube, so everybody that liked Halo was dumb in my eyes. Later on, I felt like that's very childish behavior. Like, how can I judge something that I haven't played? So later on, I played Halo, and I loved it. I think Halo is a very interesting game, especially played on Heroic. I don't like it on Legendary that much. But especially played on Heroic, I think the way it handles weapons, the way it handles enemy design is very interesting and really cool. So you gotta be open-minded to it. And sometimes, especially with games like Platinum games, the first run is kind of the tutorial. That's sort of par for the course. I know some people in the comments were already saying, oh, you should play Metal Gear Rising next, or God Hand. God, no. Like, those games are great. But again, the first playthrough of those is going to be fucking rough. Like, your first run in God Hand, it's going to be special. Especially since that game is fucking long. It's like, what, 15 hours? You're going to be ending that game like with the most fucked up weird moveset available, wondering like how, and like later on maybe when you get good at it, you play it multiple times, you'll look back and like, oh my god, I was such an idiot. But my original point was, I think it's almost immature to like not give a game an equally fair shake, but treat it equally as a game you did, and which is sort of the core consensus for me here. There's a couple of things like to close off that I want to note that I think he missed out on. Let me say blah, blah, blah. He notes the on-rail sections, that he found them boring. Again, it's a 4-hour game. There's 3 of them. They're like 3 minutes long. To be honest, I don't care for the sniper section that much. But it's very short, and every game has something like that. Doesn't mean it's excusable, but I do like the game's ability, or at least attempt, to give some variation. And generally speaking, it at least uses the game's core mechanics to do this. It's not like you suddenly have a mini game, but and that's a very Mikami thing to do. Like, he'll use the game's core mechanics to give variation. You also see this in Resident Evil 4, his other work, where, for example, all the traps can be dealt with by shooting, which is a core mechanic in that game. You don't do like a weird sort of mini game to make the spike floor not go down. You just shoot some orbs. You don't have a fishing mini game. You throw a grenade in the water, or you shoot the fish, literally. And the same is here. Like, you don't even have to use the turrets if you want. You can just use your regular weapons. I think that's pretty cool that he still has that idea of how it works. There's also a complaint about the walking sections. It's like, what? No. I mean, yeah, they're stupid, and it's mostly meant to mask loading times in the original release, because that game was pretty beautiful for its time, especially with all the effects going on. But yeah, mostly what I miss out in this video is the general attempt to appreciate a game. And this is something I really feel is lacking in a lot of analyses in gaming in general. It's either a really basic first take of, like, I played this game for like 5 minutes and it was okay, here's my review. And in case of action games like this, like Devil May Cry, Ninja Gaiden, God of War, Zone of the Enders, Vanquish in this case, these are games that really need more time to be appreciated. The same can be said for his favorite game, or at least what I think is his favorite game, because he always talks about it, Doom Eternal. The first time you play it, it's not super interesting. Like, it's cool, but especially on lower difficulty settings, it's not putting up nearly enough of a fight. And it isn't until you play it more, you experiment with the meat hook, like the inertia and the mobility it gives you, the weapon swapping, and you start optimizing your weapon combos, experimenting with other mods, even though some mods, in my opinion, are practically useless or bad. You can use them because they're fun. Like, maybe you really like that rapid fire shotgun mod because it has a cool sound effect. I don't know. But that happens then, you know. And with these types of games, you really gotta, I always say, you get out of them what you put into them. Like, if you basically go into them like, okay, I'm gonna make a 20-minute video to appease my subscribers, you're not gonna get out of it what it can offer you. And I think that's generally what I want to say. Like, if you're gonna do a video like this, put in the work, you know. And this is more a personal thing, because this video is going on long enough, so. But I think if you're gonna review a game that's old like this, you gotta add something to the narrative. And this is something I always take seriously with Stinger, is when I review a game, I make sure that I complete all the difficulty settings, preferably do a challenge run if possible, so that I can really understand where the hardcore fan base is coming from. Maybe I don't agree at all, but at least I've done it. And that way you can add something to the narrative. And this is just a bunch of, like, day one takes. Like, it's like you play Sifu on day one. It's like, yeah, you can throw enemies against walls, but why should I do that if I can just sweep them constantly? It's like, dude, you know, it's just stupid. So yeah, I think the video, it was a lot less worse than I thought it was, or thought it could be. But I hope this video did clearly illustrate why I don't agree with some of the key points he made, and also sort of portrayed what I think is the fun in Vanquish. And to summarize, it's the pressure, it's the meter management, pushing yourself to the limit, and that it's a game that's just fun because it's fun to play, because of all the cool shit you can do into it, and that it's rewarding when you can do that in a high pressure, high difficult environment. To close it off with one final statement, I have never heard anyone complain about Vanquish being hard on normal. I mean, Jesus Christ. I don't know what to say to that. This game has a great safety net on lower difficulties, so you can practice, and then there's a lot of stuff that you can do for personal enjoyment and personal satisfaction on higher difficulty levels. So if you haven't played Vanquish yet, please do. It's a fantastic game. It's dirt fucking cheap too, by the way, probably. At least in my experience. I think it's like $2 if you buy it used for older systems. It didn't sell well. I think it released like with Fallout or something. Buy it, play it, have fun with it. There's a guide on Stinger on the forum about all the advanced tech. I also have it on the Steam forums, Steam discussion boards, I think. There's a great video from Zarok on all the advanced tech as well. Just have fun with it and enjoy it and give it the attention it deserves, and it will pay dividends back. I promise you that. This has been me from my empty room. And I hope this video was informative, that you liked it. Excuse me if I sometimes blurbed from one place to the other. And I hope the language was understandable. And I'm not sure if I'm going to do this again. I'm not really a video guy, like I said. But cheers. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. And maybe until next time.